Female sexuality and behavior are often shaped not only by social and cultural factors, but also by deeply rooted biological and psychological mechanisms, which can be seen as a result of genetic memory. This memory, accumulated over thousands of years of evolution, continues to impact women's behavior, forming certain patterns that are sometimes painful and contradictory and often unconscious. One such pattern is the perception of beauty and sexuality as the key to survival and a successful life. A woman, in her desire to be attractive, often ties her value to her physical beauty, which is closely related to the idea that she can be saved through her looks. An example of such salvation can be found in myths and fairy tales, such as the story of Snow White. In this tale, the stepmother, aging and losing her beauty, feels intense envy toward the young and beautiful Snow White. For the stepmother, this is not just competition, it is a threat to her status and power. Her beauty was her source of authority, and aging marks the beginning of losing control. In this conflict, we can see the expression of genetic memory. For centuries, women have been taught that their worth is measured by their physical beauty, and the loss of that beauty is seen as the end of their power and influence. Women, feeling that their attractiveness fades with age, often experience intense fear. This fear has a philosophical foundation. Søren Kierkegaard wrote about the existential anxiety that arises from the awareness of one's mortality. For women, whose value is often associated with their appearance, the realization of inevitable aging becomes especially painful. As existential philosophers point out, this anxiety and fear are not only personal experiences, but also culturally constructed realities. Women begin to perceive aging not only as a physical change, but as the loss of their value in a society based on outward appearance. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his philosophy of the Übermensch and the overcoming of weakness, spoke about the striving for transcendence and the search for inner strength. However, for women, this transcendence is often perceived as the loss of their outward beauty, making the process especially painful. The fear of aging and the loss of beauty becomes an existential crisis that women face throughout their lives, especially as their prime of physical attractiveness begins to fade. In this context, another deep mechanism manifests: female misogyny. This is not just envy, it is a hidden aggression, fueled by fear and competition. An aging woman, realizing her vulnerability, begins to feel hostility toward younger women, especially those who retain their beauty and attractiveness. This feeling is connected to cultural and biological mechanisms, where youth is associated with the continuation of life, with strength and the ability to survive. This makes younger women a threat to older ones, as they remind them of the relentless passage of time. The older woman, unaware of this, may begin to compete with the younger, reinforcing toxic patterns of behavior and deepening female misogyny. This phenomenon is akin to Stockholm Syndrome, where the victim begins to feel attachment to her abuser. In the case of women, this may manifest as attachment to the culture that oppresses them, to the images of violence, fear, and submission. The woman, in essence, saves herself through her submission because she has been taught that without external attractiveness she has no value. The young woman, whose body remains a symbol of strength and youth, becomes the object of desire, yet she too is vulnerable in this harsh, gene-coded society. Thus, female misogyny today cannot be seen merely as competition between women for male attention. It is a struggle for identity, for retaining value in a world where outward appearance and youth take precedence. Women often don't realize how their upbringing, culture, and even genetic memory have led them to these patterns of behavior. Philosophically, this can be interpreted as a consequence of Nietzsche's concept of the paradigm of weakness. Women are forced to fight for their place in society through physical perfection. battling not only external threats, but also internal demons of the fear of aging and the loss of their value. This is a complex psychological and cultural dynamic where genetic memory, psychological trauma, and social norms create a tangled web, making it difficult for women to find a path toward true freedom and equality.